A soft, steady hum fills the background, and for a moment, nothing is rushed. There's no need for noise or dramatic pauses. We're here simply to observe, as quietly as one might stand in the corner of a room, listening. It's Olivia Bennet we're listening to today. Her voice is familiar, yet weighed down by the years of neglect she's lived through. The tension in her words is quiet, but it's there, threaded through with the sharpness of experience. Olivia was the only one who showed up. Theo Montgomery, her grandfather, sat alone on his recliner, staring at a birthday cake Olivia had carefully chosen, carefully brought. His hands trembled slightly, not just from age, but from the weight of the silence that filled his home. The family. Where were they? They were at a bar, all of them her father, her stepmother, her half-brother, even Aunt Ellie, but none of them cared enough to call, not even for a moment. "Don't worry, Grandpa. I'm here," Olivia had said, placing the cake in front of him, trying to mask the hurt. And that was the beginning, the first small fracture that would break everything wide open. This is how she remembers it. For as long as I can recall, birthdays were never a big deal to my family. But I thought, maybe this one would be different. I should have known better. The next morning, it was almost as if nothing had happened. I sat at my kitchen table, scrolling through my phone, trying to drown out the silence. But then it hit me like a quiet, creeping wave. My family had posted pictures of themselves, all smiles, gathered at that bar. It wasn't just a birthday ignored, it was as if my whole existence had been erased. My dad, laughing with Isabel, holding up drinks with Jackson and Aunt Becky. The caption read, "Great night with the family at the new spot. Cheers to new beginnings." I could almost hear them, the clinking of glasses, the loud music. And here I was, sitting at home with an empty cup of coffee, trying not to feel like the last person in the world. I swiped through more photos, heart sinking deeper with each one. Jackson, dancing like he didn't have a care in the world, captioned "party mode" on Ellie's comment underneath Isabel's post, saying, "Wish I could have stayed longer next time." Not one mention of Grandpa, not one mention of me. I knew I was always the afterthought, but seeing them all out there while I was the only one who showed up for Grandpa, it was like a punch to the gut. I dropped my phone onto the table, my hands shaking a little. This wasn't just about the birthday. It was about everything I'd ever felt, the years I spent unnoticed, while they threw their lives away. Not one of them called to check on Grandpa. Not a single. "Hey, we missed your birthday." I grabbed my keys. I had to see him, had to make sure he was okay, and that maybe I could finally do something about this, about all of it. The drive felt longer than usual, like the miles between us stretched on for miles more. When I arrived at Theo's house, the smell of old wood and dust was familiar, grounding me. He was sitting at the kitchen table, thumbing through unopened mail. "Hey, Grandpa," I said, smiling a little too wide. He looked up, surprised. "Olivia, you're here early." I closed the door softly, the familiar scent of cedar and aged parchment grounding me. Grandpa Theo sat at the oak kitchen table, his silhouette framed by the morning light. As I sat across from him, I noticed a thick stack of documents, not just utility bills, but bank statements and legal notices. "Grandpa, let me help you with those," I said, reaching for a stray envelope. He hesitated, then sighed, sliding a heavy folder toward me. As I flipped through the pages, my breath hitched. These weren't notices of debt. They were records of wealth, savings accounts with six-figure balances, brokerage statements, and the deed to the lakeside cabin. But tucked between them were the hidden truths, canceled checks, and loan agreements. Over the last decade, Theo had quietly funneled thousands to my father for his failed startups, paid off Aunt Ellie's credit cards, and covered Jackson's emergency expenses. He had been their silent ATM, receiving nothing but silence in return once the checks cleared. "You've been carrying them all this time," I whispered, looking at a recent unpaid electric bill. It wasn't that he lacked the money. He had simply lost the will to manage it alone while his children only called when they needed a handout. Theo's eyes met mine, clear and sharp despite his weary frame. I wanted to see if they'd show up for me, live, not for the money, but for me. He patted my hand. "You're the only one who didn't ask for a dime. Yet, you're the only one here." The realization hit me. Theo wasn't struggling. He was testing a legacy that had already been betrayed. After a few quiet moments, I pushed myself up from the table, the weight of everything pressing down on me. "Grandpa, I've been thinking." He didn't look up, just sighed and scratched his chin, like he already knew where this was going. "You don't need to worry about me. It's been fine this way for years." I leaned forward, careful not to make him feel cornered. "I'm not talking about just now. I'm talking about everything. You've been covering for everyone else, and no one's really been there for you." "Not like I've been." He paused, his hand hovering over the pile of papers. "You've been here, but this, the money, the house, it's all just stuff. You're right, I've been giving it away for years, trying to help, but it never mattered to them. It stung, hearing him admit that. But I knew he was right. "Grandpa, you can't keep letting this slide. It's time to make sure it's all safe. For you." Theo looked at me for the first time in what felt like forever. He wasn't angry, just tired. "I want you to have everything. You've earned it." "I'm too old for this. I should have done this sooner." I nodded. It was the first time he'd said it out loud, and somehow, that made everything feel final. "I'll take care of it." The storm broke on a Tuesday. It started with a frantic, stuttering voicemail from my father, Gregory. His voice wasn't just tight, it was bordering on hysteria. When I finally called him back, he didn't even say hello. "Olivia, what the hell did you do?" he hissed. "I went to the bank this morning to discuss a bridge loan using the lakeside cabin as collateral. I've got creditors breathing down my neck, and I figured Grandpa wouldn't mind helping out one last time." My heart hammered against my ribs, but my voice remained ice cold. "And what did the bank say?" "Dad?" "They told me I don't have the right," he roared. "They said the title was pulled from Grandpa's personal name weeks ago. It's been moved into an irrevocable trust, Olivia. A trust where you are the sole trustee and beneficiary. Even the mansion is in it. I'm effectively locked out of my own father's estate." When I arrived at the house 20 minutes later, Gregory was pacing the porch, his face a mottled shade of red. He held a crumpled printout from the county recorder's office, the digital footprint of Nate Lawson's surgical legal work. "You manipulated him," Gregory spat as I climbed the steps. "You saw him getting weak, and you swooped in. How could you let him sign away his children's birthright?" I didn't flinch. I looked him dead in the eye, seeing the desperation of a man who had viewed his father as nothing more than a safety net. Grandpa wasn't manipulated. Dad. He was finally awake. He saw you all at that bar on his birthday, and he realized that if he didn't protect his legacy now, you'd have it auctioned off before he was even cold in the ground. The silence that followed was brittle, broken only by the synchronized roar of 2 more engines pulling into the driveway. Isabel and Aunt Ellie had arrived. The vultures had smelled the change in the wind. The doorbell didn't just ring. It sounded like a summons. I looked at Gregory, who remained paralyzed by the realization that his financial safety net had vanished. I took a steadying breath and opened the door. Isabel stormed in first, her heels like a drumbeat of war on the hardwood. Jackson slouched behind her, eyes darting toward the expensive art on the walls, already appraising his loss. Aunt Ellie brought up the rear, her face a mask of pinched entitlement. Olivia, Isabel began, her voice vibrating with a fake, motherly concern that turned to poison in a second. We've spoken to our own counsel. You cannot simply hoard a multi-million-dollar estate. Theo is an elderly man. He's clearly been pressured into this. Trust. It's not a will you can contest in probate. Isabel, I replied, standing my ground in the center of the foyer. It's an irrevocable trust. The assets are already moved. It's a sealed vault. He's senile, she shrieked, her composure finally snapping. You took advantage of a confused old man who doesn't even know what year it is. I reached into the sideboard and pulled out a notarized envelope. Actually, Nate Lawson insisted on a full competency assessment before a single line was signed. Grandpa sat with 2 independent doctors. He answered every question about his holdings, his family, and exactly why he was choosing to bypass you all. He's more lucid than you are right now. Jackson stepped forward, his voice cracking. So, that's it, we get nothing. We're family. Family shows up for birthdays. Jackson, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that cut through the room. Family doesn't wait for the death certificate to start shopping for sports cars. You aren't fighting for Grandpa. You're fighting for a payday you never earned. The tension in the room thickened. But none of us moved. Isabel's eyes burned with frustration. Her face flushed. Jackson kicked the back of his heel into the floor, clearly uncomfortable. Aunt Ellie just stood there, arms crossed tightly, as if protecting herself from something. So, this is it, Gregory asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He really gave everything to you. I nodded, not bothering to hide my resolve. Yeah, he did. And I'm not letting anyone take it. Gregory's face hardened, his jaw tight. You don't even understand. Liv. We've always been there for him. You think just showing up one day makes you deserving of all this? I wanted to snap back, to remind him how many times Theo had been there for him, and how much he'd given. But I didn't. It wasn't worth it. You didn't show up when it mattered, I said quietly, meeting his gaze. And that's on you. The silence that followed was heavy. They'd all been looking for something from Theo, something they thought they could claim. Now they had nothing. I wasn't going to back down. Not this time. Don't bother coming back, I said, my voice steady. It's done. After the confrontation, everything felt strangely quiet. The house, once filled with their angry voices, was now mine, completely mine. I sat in the living room, staring out the window, trying to make sense of everything. I had done it. I had stood up to them, to all of them. But still, the weight of what I had to do next felt heavy. The life insurance money Theo left me was more than just a financial cushion. It was a lifeline. I didn't want to sell anything. Not yet. I'd been reading about estate taxes, about how it could all slip away if I wasn't careful. So, I made sure the first part went to paying those taxes and covering the upkeep on the house. The rest that went into investments, something stable, something that would last. I had to do this right, for him, for me. When I first moved in, I thought I'd feel guilty like I was stealing something from my family. But now, as I walked through the rooms of the house, touching things Theo had left behind, I felt calm. For the first time, everything made sense. I wasn't just taking what was left. I was protecting it. I was finally building something that could last. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the invisible one anymore. It was a week after the funeral when I found it folded neatly, tucked inside one of Theo's old notebooks, the kind he used to write grocery lists. It wasn't like the other papers I had gone through. This one felt different, like it mattered more than the legal documents. The letter was short, but the words hit me harder than I expected. You didn't give me money. You gave me time. That's worth more than anything I ever saved. The house, the cabin, the account they're yours now. Use them. Don't let anyone tell you it's wrong to keep what you earned by being there. Love, Grandpa Theo. I sat down on the couch, holding the letter in my hands. It wasn't just the money, or the house, or the cabin. It was the fact that Theo had trusted me, the only one he'd ever really trusted, the only one who had shown up. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't wipe them away. I couldn't. This was it. This was all I needed. Theo wasn't just leaving me property. He was leaving me the chance to live for myself, to be someone who mattered. I folded the letter back, tucking it into my pocket. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. I never expected this kind of peace, not after everything. The house felt different now, like it had always been mine, even though I hadn't known it until recently. I spent my mornings in the garden, keeping the plants Theo loved so much alive. The afternoons. I took long walks by the lake, the same route I used to take with him. It wasn't about making money or building something big. It was about maintaining what he'd left behind. I kept the house the way it was, not out of guilt or some grand sense of duty, but because it felt right. The family didn't come around, and I didn't expect them to. They were gone, and it felt like the right kind of quiet. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. They were just distant now, and maybe that was okay. For the first time, I felt like I was living for me, and maybe that's all I needed. Olivia's story is one of small moments of showing up when no one else does, of finding peace in the silence left by others.